taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet?
I love people as I meet them one by one. People are just wonderful as individuals. You see the whole...
My great aspiration, my greatest ambition is to be so good. Now, in that way, I'm tiresome, as I suppose, to live with, because I want to be a fantastic human being.
I am the greatest.
We're not disputing that, Cassius, but how does Sonny Liston feel about it?
He can't feel but one way, and let's take everything I say and like it. Because February the 25th, I'm going to take back my job. I'm the champ. He's no champ. He's a tramp.
When you see men fall, don't laugh. Learn. Learn. Because you're on your way up. And the things that tempt people to fall, you and I are not free from that temptation.
What up, peoples? Peace, blessings, glory, praise, and honor to the Most High. We back. Another Monday. Another day to get it right. Another conversation to be had. I'm grateful to be here with you guys again, man. It's always nice to be in good company, whether or not we agree or disagree on certain subjects. You see the title. We're going to get into it. Before we go there, you know, I got to do a couple of announcements. First and foremost, shout outs to my poets, my writers, content creators, all of you. Much love. Keep doing your thing. Hope to see you up here soon. I hope I get a chance to network with you and even just give you a space to where you can showcase your gifts and your talents. I got my co-host in the building tonight. Make sure y'all go follow her on all of her platforms. This lineup for this week is going to be sweet. If you've missed any of the shows, I advise you to go back, spin the block. We've had a lot of conversations up here, a lot of gems, a lot of information, a lot of knowledge has been dropped on this channel from all the way back, going 2 years. So appreciate everybody who's been riding with us. I see SM, I see Anna in the building. Anna going to be joining us tomorrow. Y'all not going to want to miss that one. It's going to be me, Jason, Sid, and Anna. Can't wait. This week is going to be bananas. Y'all have any topics, anything that y'all want to share with us throughout these shows that you want to see us discuss? Make sure you hit me up, leave an email, DM. You know how to reach me. Matter of fact, let me bring this up real quick. I'm going to bring Sid up, let her do her introduction and all that, and we're going to jump into this conversation. So, Miss Sid, you are up. Talk to me.
Hey everyone, good to see you guys. Well, first of all, for anyone that is new, hasn't seen me before, my name's Sydney. I'm a poet. I'm an educator. I'm super passionate about climate change, but I also love to go into psychology, especially in different types of people, which we will be discussing today. I'm on Threads, Instagram, and all poetry under the Science Squid Poetry. And also, what am I forgetting? Blue Sky as well. So if you want to read my writing or just have a conversation with me, I would be happy to connect with you on social media. But I will pass it along so we can start this very diverse topic. There's a lot to unpack here today.
Right. So you sent me a video, and I had to sit down and watch it. I didn't want to just be out and about moving around, and because I really wanted to hear what these people were talking about. And I can't speak verbatim what they said, but basically what I gathered from it is that there are individuals whom believe in a certain type of system, but they don't want to tag it with one group of people, but they want to pick and choose who else they don't want to put it with. It's like the bombing in Las Vegas, and the situation with I can't remember the other place where one guy was yeah. They wanted to label one person as a terrorist, but they didn't want to label the other person as a terrorist. And it's a conversation that's been had before, but for whatever reason, we've never really gone there with what is domestic terrorism? What are white supremacists? What really does all that entail? So that's what I want to talk about. Because as far as I'm concerned, all of it is connected. I don't see the only thing that I can see happening here is they're trying to just basically get away with doing stupid shit, and they're trying to disguise it as something else. But we've seen the definitions for it. I just actually saw the definition for what both are, and no, we're not about to let that slide. So
Man. Yeah, there's one of the things that I want to address right off the bat. There's the idea that white supremacy is like an American thing or a European thing, that it's not widespread, but there are organizations throughout the world. There are organizations in Europe, there are organizations in Africa, there are organizations obviously in America, in South America, in Australia. I believe it was like 2012 or 2014, White Church in New Zealand. They also had a white supremacy attack in Christchurch, where multiple mass shootings took place at mosques. And also, white supremacy covers a variety of types of hate. It's not just geared towards white people generally. Obviously, there is those factions, but it also is very closely intertwined with xenophobia, not wanting people from other countries to live in your country. It's also rooted in LGBT and homophobia, and sexism, anti-Semitism, which is hatred of individuals that are Jewish. And it's very, very entrenched in religious ideology as well. There are biological reasons given. For example, there's the promotion of the idea that, like, this is where the term supremacy comes from, the idea that white people are inherently are better than the other races for a variety of reasons that they provide. But it's the general idea that white, straight, quote unquote, normal people are better than all these other groups of people. And from what I've gathered from my own research, my understanding of psychology, a lot of this is based out of their own hatred of self, even though they aren't expressing it as that way. They are obviously expressing it outwards at other people. They're using their own insecurities as a means to target other people, blame other people for their problems, for their situations. A famous example is Jewish people have historically been accused of causing economic problems and the degradation of culture. And yeah, so there's quite a lot of reasons behind white supremacy. A lot of it is upbringing, and sometimes it is groups focused on this form of hatred reaching out to vulnerable people, young, especially young men. They typically go for men that are in their teens and 20s, who are struggling with their identity, who might be outcasts, who might not have a social group, who don't have a community. And they are using them to promote their ideology because they recognize that they're more susceptible to accepting that type of behavior, lifestyle, opinions, the whole gamut. It's also very much a historical concept as well. The original police in the United States were slave patrols in many areas. And to this day, there's still a lot of white supremacy ideology entrenched in our justice system, the police force, the National Guard, even the military. But it has very, very deep roots. And unfortunately, because of social media, it's been allowed to fester more openly. A lot of these websites, like Truth Social and what's the other one, Reddit and stuff like that, allow for that ideology to have airtime, where in the past it would be a little bit harder to get that information out there because fewer newspapers and radio shows were going to be willing to promote that type of ideology. But now with the internet, anything goes. So it's been a lot easier for these groups to espouse their belief systems. And so we've definitely been seeing a rise in the level of violence, outward hatred, vocal advocates for homicide and various types of mass murders. It's mind-boggling, to be honest, hearing the rhetoric that is promoted and the reasons behind why they do what they do. One thing that stuck out to me when I was doing my research was they have a hard time defining racism, which I find quite ironic because from our perspective, racism seems pretty cut and dry. Like racism is you hate somebody just because of the color of their skin. But when asked by reporters, a lot of them would say, oh, there's no clear definition of racism. Like we aren't actually racist. We don't hate people because of the color of their skin. We just don't want them in our communities, which is so hard to wrap your head around, especially if you're not exposed to that type of hateful rhetoric. But unfortunately, to this day, we have a lot of groups that promote this ideology, both outwardly and as more, as they put it, suit and tie kind of concealed violence, where they don't outwardly promote it in that way, but they still have all of that ideology in their manifestos, in their writing, and everything. And the Las Vegas bomber was the perfect example of this. He had a detailed manifesto talking about how we need to remove many groups of people from the military, from the country, that they're responsible for the plight of our country, for the decline in our society, and that we need to remove them, or in other words, exterminate them from existence to make this country better. And it's very alarming to see people grouped into terrorism when these groups are protected under the idea of free speech, where we have, for example, I think his name was, is it Luigi, or is that just the nickname everyone gives him? The one that killed the CEO?
I think that's his name. I'm not sure. I think that's his name though.
Okay.
It might be his nickname.
Okay. Well, when he was arrested, he had a full military escort. He killed one person, but the individual that blew up the truck in front of the Trump Tower, who had this manifesto talking about wanting to essentially remove an entire group of people or groups of people from society in general, he's been labeled as just a distraught veteran, which is a very, very poignant symbol of the type of hatred that we're facing today, the type of ideology that we are currently seeing a rise in. So, yeah, I will leave it at that for now.
I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with this conversation. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm uncomfortable. How about that?
We should be.
I'm very uncomfortable with it, and more people should be uncomfortable with it because it's ideas and people who believe in things like this that make it harder for regular people to live their life without the drama.
Mm-hmm.
People don't even know how to have healthy interracial relationships because they're scared they're going to get judged.
Mm-hmm.
Their kids get tortured and tormented because their parents decided that they wanted to blend cultures together. Why do you have an issue with who a person loves and want to be with? Why does that matter? Why does that bother you? And a lot of what they do is under the belief that they feel like they are better than everyone else, or it's just some passive way of saying this is what I was taught, this is how I was brought up, this is what was shown to me, and so that's what I'm going to follow. And you can take it or leave it. And we have the power to support us. We can hide behind whatever we want, and we can get away with it because we have the power to get away with it. Now, here's the thing: you might not have been in a space where you've suffered from this. You maybe you never experienced being looked at looked at funny because you were a certain color. Maybe you didn't have people walking on the other side of the street when they seen you walking. Maybe you never had to deal with what Emmett Till or Trayvon Martin had to deal with. Maybe you don't know that. You could never understand that. So maybe, yeah, you might feel uncomfortable. And if you feel uncomfortable, I'm sorry, but the conversation needs to be had.
One of the crucial things that stuck with me from what I was watching earlier is the idea that part of the problem is that society distances themselves from people with this ideology. People as soon as you find out that someone is a white supremacist or is a neo-Nazi or something like that, often their community will cut them out, will cut them off, will disregard them, ignore them. That's actually part of the problem. When you further ostracize them, it allows them to go further into that type of ideology. They seek out people that are like them, and it allows that ideology to continue. It furthers the divide because it separates them from the very people that they have different ideas about. And so it allows them to continue having those ideas. It's been shown time and time again that when you're exposed to the people that you hate, you tend to eventually recognize the humanity in them. And as long as you are enabled to have a more positive interaction with them, it enables you to develop more of a tolerance for those types of people, for those types of individuals. And so it's difficult because, yes, this is very, very difficult to talk about because oftentimes the ideology comes with discussions of homicide and murder and suicide and violence. And a lot of people don't want to hear it at all. They cut themselves off from the story altogether. They don't want to hear facts about it. They don't want to hear stories about it. They don't want to hear the other perspective. They just want to shut themselves off, pretend that it doesn't happen. But that is what allows those things to happen. We have to make an effort to reach these people, to essentially appeal to their humanity and find a way to, even if we don't get along, to at least generate respect for each other in a way that allows us to coexist without having to enact hate on each other.
If we're being completely honest, and most of us, if not the majority of us, have been lied to about a lot of things in our life. And I want to put this out here. I don't advocate for any type of violence whatsoever. I don't support gangs in the African American community. I don't support corporate gangs, and I don't support a police force that uses their power to bully and influence other people into doing things. I don't I don't support any of it. I just don't. Bad
Mhm.
behavior is bad behavior. It doesn't really make a difference to me what complexion you are.
Yeah. Violence
If
begets
you're
violence.
exactly, and so I know a lot of people make this a race thing. To me, is really not,
Mhm.
because if you being honest, we all kill each other and we all
Mhm.
hate each other in our own unique way. It's just that some stuff gets put on the spot more than others. You hear more about my color killing each other than you hear about any other race doing the violence. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't happen anywhere else.
Mhm. Also, by not talking about it, it enables us to also ignore the fact that it's also, just as it is in every other aspect of human existence, people fall on a spectrum where there's some people that they might disagree with a certain religion, they might disagree with a certain lifestyle behavior, or they might not want people from certain countries coming to the United States, but they never actually act on what they do. Maybe they just talk about it or something to other people, but they don't really like go out and advocate for violent hatred or anything like that. But then you do also have people on the other end of the spectrum that are actively promoting and advocating for or even committing violent acts towards these groups. And I think you have to treat them differently based on the level that they're at, because somebody who is just racist is not going to require the same type of rehabilitation as somebody who is like, I'm going to go out and mass murder all of these people in this church just because I don't like the religion. There's definitely a different way to handle the varieties of racism, sexism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism. Um, but we also have to recognize too that a lot of them are kind of intertwined, where you do have a lot of people that promote white supremacist beliefs that also think women should not be able to vote, should not be able to be seen or have uh, body autonomy. They usually hate multiple groups of people at the same time. It's very rare that it's like they hate just one group super super specifically. Like usually it's a hate across a spectrum. If you are different than me, I do not like you. And that's a large root of the white supremacy, is just the feeling that you are better than anybody who acts differently than you.
All that shit is dumb to me. It's just flat out stupid. The bottom line, who raised you to think like that? It's no different than people out here coming together to defend a neighborhood that don't belong to them, to fight against another neighborhood that don't belong to them, but y'all going at each other. How does that work? Like the psychology behind a person even coming to the conclusion that this is your enemy off of the basis of perimeter is ridiculous to me. You
Part of
think
it is they kind of exist in almost an echo chamber where it's humans have a tendency to reinforce the beliefs that they already have. And so if you are exposed at all to, like, let's say you have a family member that will comment like, oh yeah, the Mexicans are coming to take our jobs, or oh, the people from India are coming and stealing the jobs from the wealthy and whatever. Like, I don't know, there's so many different, like, this group is doing this to us, this group is doing this. If you're exposed to that, even passive comments are a gateway to allow that type of belief system to fester. Because if you have small bits and pieces of information that you're getting from your family, from your friends, that say like, oh, this group is responsible for this, they are doing these things to us, like, it's very often a us against them type of ideology. If they are exposed to that, it becomes much easier for them to fall victim to the more extremist views of the promoters of that type of organization. Give me one sec. Denali.
You know, here's the thing, right? Honestly, and I've said this before, the internet has raised us. Our grandparents, our grandfathers, our aunts, they all came up under this belief system that this is what this is supposed to be, and that's what that's supposed to be. And they like when you're putting out misinformation, or when you're grooming someone, or you're trying to raise your child, you want your children to be the best that they can be. You want them to be intelligent. You want them to be spiritual. You want them to be enlightened. You want them to be healthy. You want them to be productive. You want them to be in a space where God is going to use them the way that he needs to use them. I can't ever wrap my mind around talking to a 3-year-old, or I'm sitting here having a conversation at birth with a child and telling them that hate this, hate that, hate this, hate that. Don't do this, don't do that. Do this, do. I could never, like, it's crazy to me. It and I don't, because it's like, this is how I feel. I feel like if you are someone who have morals, you have a relationship and a connection with God. You know him. You know how he would view other people, how he loves. If you know how God loves, you would love the same way that God loves. You would treat people the way that God loves. So anything outside of that, to me, you're getting that from an entirely different source. Whoever taught you that skin complexion made somebody different, or your sex appeal made you something different, or you had to be a certain height, or you had to be from a certain class of men and women. If someone taught that to you, that is not from God. A lot of this stuff that we be operating under did not come from him. That's really the bottom line to all this. A lot of this did not come from God. A lot of this came from humans wanting to do things humans' way. And the only way that humans can get things the way they want them done is by incorporating their own laws, their own rules. We want what we want. We're about advancement. We're about creating. We're about building and ensuring our longevity with our our families to come after we pass away. We have to think in the future. What can I do to make sure that they're safe, that they're protected? We diluted a lot of the laws. We've diluted a lot of our beliefs. We've diluted a lot of the way that we perceive human beings. Our brains are so scrambled, so messed up.
And a lot of the time, religion is actually utilized to promote the ideology. For example, with gay and transgender individuals, it's often said like Jesus, or I mean, God has said marriage should be between a man and a woman. And so you are a sinner if you are doing anything other than that. You are given the body that you were given. And so if you're trans, you're going against God's will. Oftentimes religion is used to promote this ideology because of the willingness to take readings from whichever book they're relying on at face value. It's because religion allows for interpretation. It's going to be colored by your cultural experience and your other belief systems. And so even to us, we might read the Bible and interpret it as God is telling us that we need to love everyone. We need to be accepting and loving and accept everyone as they are. But oftentimes it's used for quite the opposite reason. And it, as I said, it's very much subjective, unfortunately. And people can use it to promote the same violence that other people using the same book would be against.
It's funny, right? Because one person will get an entirely different interpretation from reading James 1 verses 5 through 10 than the next. And I've seen this where your version of what this means would be completely different. They turned it into a cult following. See, they say, well, this basically is saying that we must fight for what is ours and we must take it if necessary. No, it does not. It does not mean that. That's not what that was supposed to relay at all. So you'll have a person take scripture or they'll take doctrine and then they will misuse it. Someone who isn't spiritually inclined or knowledgeable or have that type of relationship with the creator or have that fellowship of church or just have that connection, if you don't understand what you're reading and you're not tied into it, then what's going to happen is you're going to believe anything that somebody else says about the word because you didn't study it yourself. Most of us are lazy. Most of us don't put in the work to understand the difference between someone twisting information and giving it organically how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the definition of white has also changed over the years as well, over the decades as well. It originally encompassed like white, at some points it was like white Christians, and then it was like white European or white in general. Like there have been different definitions of like what it means to be white. For like the best example, like Jewish people can largely be white. And I mean, they're not. Like there are obviously people of color that are Jewish. But they can't, like, you can exist in multiple groups. It's not like exclusive to like a certain demographic. Like, it has changed over the years. The definitions of what's acceptable and what is not acceptable has evolved. And so that's also partially where we get different versions of white supremacy as well, because they have different origins, and so they're going to have different belief systems. They're going to have their own different ideologies. It's almost like with religion. You have a variety of different religions. You also have a variety of different types of hate systems as well.
Truth Exposed had said something. I don't know if he's still here, but he had said the majority of mass shootings came from Democrats. And I was going to ask this question. Do you think that what he said is from a stance of this is the system that these archetype of men and women represent, and so because this is what they stand for, and this list of things that they say is for the country and for the families and this, that, and third, this is what we side with. Do you believe that that's really what that is? I just can't tie one person to something, because like if that's the case, then we might as well say that Hispanic people, they kill each other too. Why do they do it? Are they Democrats? Are they Republican? What is it that they fall under? What is it that they're reading? What are their teachings? Is it the government influencing them? Is it the political aspect that's influencing them? Is it spiritual? What is it? I just, people are people to me, and folks do things based on what they were shown. How does that work out for individuals who unalive themselves because they're depressed? Was that political? Did that come from white supremacy? Did that come from some scandal that was subliminally put out through popular demand? Was that social media? What, like, that's what I'm trying to figure out, because this, all right, so this is where I stand with it. I'm gonna yield the mic. This is where I stand with it. Everybody who commits a crime, anyone who commits a sin, anyone who goes out here and moves reckless, causes pain, damage, harm, hurt under the influence of it, it doesn't matter. All of it is satanic. All of it has a root. It doesn't matter how you slice it. It doesn't matter where you point the finger. There's a root to it. And it always, in my opinion, it always goes back to one person, which is Satan. Satan puts the idea in your head, and he spreads through politics, he spreads through social media, he spreads through lust, he spreads through lies, he spreads through smiles, he spreads through aesthetically appealing beauty, he spreads through charisma, he spreads through laughter, he spreads through allure. It doesn't make a difference. His only job is to convince you that what he has to offer you is better than what God has to offer you. So he uses the same blueprint that God uses, except everything that he touches has a side effect to it. Is you ever pick up a pill or take something and it tells you on the side, like, side effects may be vomiting, shitting for 5 weeks in a row. There's always a side effect to anything that Satan got his hands on. So all these people who are out here crashing out and doing all this is because it's coming from uh, uh, the principle of darkness, the principalities of darkness. I yield.
From I definitely agree with what you're saying. But there's also a psychological component to it where for a large portion, it's a sense of belonging. To be part of these groups, especially if you are already an outcast, humans desire connection. Humans need each other. We are community-oriented creatures. We like to be in groups. We like to feel that we have purpose. We like to fit in. We like to feel that we have our people. And for people that have been ostracized because of their beliefs, their behaviors, their attitudes, whatever it might be, they look for community and they find community in these groups, which is partially what draws people in, because the people that are drawn into these groups do not have a community because they have been pushed out by the rest of their community members because they might have views and belief systems that really bother people. And it's hard for you to integrate yourself into society if you have belief systems that people largely don't agree with. And I think that's one of the main reasons why these can be so potent, because of the level of extreme that they go to, it's very easy. Oh my goodness. It's very easy to get along with people that are like that because let me give you an example. So let's say you have committed a violent crime already. Like, let's say you were involved in an assault at some point. There's very, very few people that are going to want to associate with you. There are very few jobs that will want to hire you. There will be very few people that will willingly let you into their house because they will be concerned about your behavior, your past behavior. And so you are cut out of a lot of different parts of the community. And so the only groups that are going to let you in are the ones that are already okay with that type of behavior and that type of violence. And so it's much more easy for them to feel like they have a community because they have people that they can freely open up about these thoughts. And oftentimes, from what I understand from the research, this is in regards to the Hells Angels. Their appearance, their tattoos, their everything is almost a sense of like, not bragging, but like who can be the most like eccentric and whatever, like almost like the same way that modeling and stuff like that, like you have to be the best and have the most. And so they tend to try and acquire the most tattoos, look the most menacing, look the most scary, have the most like outrageous ideology and stuff like that. So it's almost like there's a competitive aspect to it as well. To fit into these groups, you will make yourself more and more extreme because you want to fit in. And if that group is already extreme, to fit in, you have to kind of adhere to that rhetoric. One of the people that I was really fascinated by in my research, he was entrenched in I forgot which group it was. I think it was like the Angels, something like that. And he is a transgender individual. He was approached by one of the members who confided in him that this white supremacist was absolutely ashamed to admit that his girlfriend was Hispanic. And when he heard that, he wanted to try and connect back. And so he told him, like, hey, thank you for sharing that with me. I'm going to reciprocate. I'm transgender. And the white supremacist actually said to him, like, oh, no, don't tell me that, because I don't want to have to shoot you in the head. And it's that type of comfort where they are so downtrodden. Oftentimes these individuals are lower income. They have had previous experiences with the law. They don't live in as nice of areas, so they've been exposed to more violence already. And so to them, that is familiar. Violence is familiar to them. It's almost a comforting aspect, because as we are as humans, we are comfortable with what we're used to. And so to them, that type of lifestyle is normal to them. And that's part of the reason why it's so hard to pull people out of it, because it's so entrenched in their identity, their culture, their history, their family history, their past, everything, that it's a part of them. And they are essentially having to eschew their entire community member, the only people that accept them. And they don't want to give up those ideas for fear that if they do that, they won't have anybody. And so that's partially why this attitude is so pervasive, because we have so many people that feel like they have nothing. They have nobody to support them. A lot of them, as the individual that was in the organization said, a lot of them talked about suicide. They sit there talking to each other saying, well, I wonder what it would be like if I just shot myself in the head right now. Or I wonder what it would be like if I just like slit my wrist and watch myself bleed out. Like, they talk about self-violence just as much as they talk about violence towards other people. As we've said on this podcast before, hurt people hurt people. These individuals are so deeply damaged by whatever experiences they had in their life that this is the only outlet they feel works for them. And so, as I said, this is part of the reason why it's so difficult to dismantle this type of hatred, because it is deeply, deeply connected with your psychological well-being. And it's extremely unfortunate. And I will emphasize, I do not condone the violence. I do not condone the hatred, but I do understand it. I do understand where it comes from, and I understand why people would be drawn to it.
I can attest to it. Not on that scale, because I was never a very violent type of person, but I know what it's like to be the outcast. I know what it's like not to fit in with the popular people, this, that. I've been that person. I'll probably forever be that person. I'm okay with it now. Look, don't get it twisted. I know the difference. I understand that some things ain't what they seem to be. This ain't that. But I've been in that headspace. I hung around dealers. I've hung around philanderers. I've tried to find my identity in certain places because I didn't understand my calling or my purpose. I was kind of confused with that shit. So I get it. And it does do something to you mentally. It really does. You might not necessarily want to. There's groups out here that all they do is self-harm. That's wild to me. A group where all they do is cut and abuse themselves. YouTube, leave me alone. I didn't attack nobody specifically. But there are people out here who are wandering this earth looking for something. And if you got someone who is saying you can come here, you're welcome here, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. Especially when we live in such a divisive society where, because of social media, if you make a mistake, if you espouse a certain view, that could live with you for the rest of your life. That could follow you. The video, the clip, the quote, whatever, that can follow you for a very, very long time. And it can limit your opportunities. It can limit your friend groups. It can limit, even family members will cut you off. And so it social media has also made it much easier to ostracize people that have troubling views of society. And as I said earlier, by ostracizing these groups of people, it allows these ideals to fester. From the interviews that I've watched of people that were in those groups and then decided to leave, very, very often they said the reason why they ended up leaving was they started to realize that the things that they were basically meeting people within those categories that didn't match what was being said. And they started to realize that all of those false ideas that were promoted in the echo chamber were not actually true. And so we need to get the people out of those echo chambers because by allowing them to stay all together in one group, as long as we keep villainizing them and keeping them out of our lives, they're going to continue promoting those behaviors in an effort to feel like they're part of something. It's really, really difficult. Like, this topic is extremely difficult because a lot of people have the ideology that if you are someone I disagree with, I don't want anything to do with you. I don't want to hear anything from you. I don't want to talk to you, look at you, nothing. And it's kind of ironic because that's exactly what they're doing to us that we're hating them for. So I think it's kind of interesting how whichever side you look at it from, it's almost a mirror of the other. Even though one side isn't espousing as, like, I mean, honestly, there's violence towards them coming from our side as well, unfortunately. Antifa, in fact, which is the anti-fascist organization, which is supposed to be against stuff like white supremacy and xenophobia, they've been labeled as a terrorist group because the protesters are known to go to these groups' meetings and attack them. And so it's a very interesting juxtaposition because you're essentially getting hate from both sides, and they both have their own justifications. And so really what we need to do is we have to create an understanding between the two sides and find some way to find common ground between the two, because that will reduce the amount of extremism from both ends, from both sides. because with tolerance, you're able to cohabitate more effectively, even if you don't agree and don't like each other. There's a difference between infighting and genuine compromise. And in every aspect of society today, that is what we need. We are getting more and more divisive as a culture. There's the climate deniers, there's the climate change believers, there's the white supremacists, there's the anti-fascists, there's the Democrats, there's the Republicans, and we all hate each other. That will not work. That is going to just further the divide and push us farther apart and away from actual progress towards being accepting of each other.
I don't like hate. I don't like hate on no side. I think it's ignorant. I think that if you are a man or a woman and if you're arguing against someone looking for a solution or some type of remedy to eliminate or decrease the level of ignorance that is consistently being funneled out here into the community, I think that you need to have your head examined. I do.
Extensive therapy would definitely is definitely needed.
Yeah. Yeah, you need therapy, you need exorcism. Um, you need to be dipped in holy water and everything, because there's nobody that I know that wants to live around people that can give you the possibility that there's going to be a disturbance in their neighborhood. Nobody is trying to be scared to leave out their house or have their children going into a school not knowing whether or not this grown ass man or this grown ass woman is going to be in there operating under the tutelage of someone who thinks that genocide or harming others is okay. No rational thinking person is okay with that.
Mhm.
So like Garrett said, it needs to be shamed. We need to bring shame back. You need to be called out for your ridiculous behavior. You need to grow up. You need to act like an adult. Go get you some help. Take accountability for the fact that you are a piece of shit out here and you are a part of the problem. And maybe we can get somewhere, because a lot of this ain't it. And it's not just them for me. They represent a number of different cultures and number of different people who have their own way of thinking or their own view on what the enemy looks like.
Mhm.
Y'all y'all are so like, I don't know if it's crack. I don't know if it's drugs.
I can smell it. Anybody coming here having used crack, I can smell it.
I don't know what it is, but y'all's really sitting up here trying to convince people that doing bad and doing wrong is good. Being a horrible person is a good thing. What the fuck is happening to the this shit is weird to me. No, I don't want my community to constantly be devalued by gun violence. Nobody wants to move. Nobody wants to move into the neighborhood because two doors down, a family got murdered in here over some stupid stuff, or this building was shut down because of some stupid. Like, come on, man. What are we talking about? The police departments All of it needs to be reassessed. All of it needs to be looked at.
100%.
We need real evaluations of these people, like profile all of them, give them all psychological tests. I want to know who the hell is supposed to be out here protecting us.
That actually brings up a point about one of your first questions with defining what terrorism actually is, because in the country we have a habit of, or we have a very loose definition of what terrorism is considered to be, and it also tends to be highly subjective, where even if it would meet the definition of terrorism, if they are a certain, like, again with the Las Vegas incident, because he's a veteran, a lot of them want to say that he's just somebody that's been brought down by whatever he's going through. I don't know what his life was like, but all of the stuff that he was experiencing, that he was a result of that and not his actions. But in other cases, we're perfectly willing to say, oh, no, it's because of him as a person, so we have to take him down. It has nothing to do with the culture at large. And so we apply different definitions, even when the incidences are almost mirror images of each other. As we've been seeing very recently, people who could be classified as terrorists are not being classified as terrorists, while other people who are committing acts that are meant to create terror are not being labeled as such. So we really have to figure out what our definition of terrorism is, and then create a list. We need to have an understanding of who these individuals are that are committing all of these violent acts. And because by knowing your enemy, you're more able to manage all of the impacts of their behaviors.
I think we know our enemy. No, matter of fact, let me go ahead and scratch what I said. Sorry. A lot of people don't know who their enemy is for real. I was just about, I stuck my foot in my mouth. No, we don't. The people that you think are your enemy really aren't. The ones that really are your enemy, you can't even tell the difference between someone that is setting you up for failure and someone who is setting you up for success. That's how bad it is. These people have gotten you life behind bars or in the grave. These people have gotten you fired. These people have gotten you jumped. These people have gotten you beat up. You lost your homes, your families. But you consider them friends. You consider them someone that you can rely on and you can go to for advice, sound cognitive advice. This is the schematic to your success if you follow everything that I'm doing. And then your ass go right off the cliff. No, we don't. No, we don't know who our enemy is. A lot of people don't know who their enemy is. If they did, they would definitely do better. A lot of us would definitely do better.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that Garrett had said, and then Anna was talking about. I can't recall specifically what it was. Uh, but nah, all of it is terrorism to me. doesn't it doesn't matter if it's coming from the government or if it's coming from up the street from me. All of it is terrorism because you're putting other people at risk and in danger.
Yeah.
Because you don't know how to figure out your shit.
If you're using violence at all, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, regardless of what color you are, if you are committing violence against other people, especially for the purpose of promoting hate, that should be terrorism, hands down. And like you said, even if it's from like the police or military.
That's a fact. That's an absolute fact. Oh, any last words? Any last thoughts on this?
Man,
I have a couple, but I want to give you a chance to say whatever it is that you want to say.
Well, I just first wanted to thank everyone for watching. I know this was a really difficult topic, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about such a difficult, to have such a difficult conversation. Sorry, I'm trying to escape her crying. But okay, fine. But overall, when it, all right, 1 second. Overall, I just want to say that, as I said, if it's violence committed against another person, that should be considered terrorism, and we should not promote and allow people to be committing acts of violence or promoting acts of violence openly. Someone brought up, I think it was Garrett brought up earlier, freedom of speech. I think that also needs to be evaluated, where free speech, oh my goodness, she's tired, I'm sorry. We have to figure out where free speech begins or ends, and where hate speech starts, because I think we also don't have a very good definition of that either.
I got you covered. I'm gonna let you handle your business. I know you got some things going on over there, so I want to say this to the people. Not saying anything is just as bad as turning your back or seeing someone commit a crime and walking away. Not acknowledging that this happens is just as bad as letting the crimes happen, letting innocent people get hurt and get harmed. Trying to sweep it under the rug and pretend it doesn't exist is no different than being a part of a jury giving someone a life sentence or giving them the death penalty. Wrong is wrong, right is right. And if it ain't right, we need to start to really reevaluate our priorities. Fuck all this political shit. Forget all this. It ain't about being on anybody's side. It's about getting the wrong people off the street. It's about getting our loved ones safer. It's about getting our streets and our communities safer. I don't want these fucking fools out here terrorizing the world. Innocent people continuously losing their lives over some of the most ridiculous stuff. There's folks that should be still here right now, but they're not. All because Jim Bob and Cornelius was told that it was okay to go around lynching people and hanging people from trees and this, that. Come on, man. Get it together, get it right. Y'all know we are all adults. Nobody is under the age of 18 on here. You know better. You absolutely know better. But if you want to continue to pretend like this doesn't happen, that's on you. But as far as I'm concerned, we need to do a little more homework. We need to start calling more people out, and we need to expose it and force the people who are in charge of all of these laws. We need to force them to do their job. Do your job. Everything that is on that Constitution, everything that you signed off on, if they go against everything that is here, and biblically, if they go against that, then you need to hold them accountable. Point them out. Straight up.
And also, regardless of the reason, if people are committing crimes, we have very clear definitions of what what the crimes are. We know what murder is. We know what genocide is, and we know what all abuse looks like. So we should stop focusing on why they did it and just prosecute them for the fact that they did it in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh But that was easy. That was pretty easy. Look, ain't no bad blood here. I love everybody equally. But the idiots need to they need to go somewhere. They do not need to be walking and roaming freely on this planet. They need to be somewhere where they can get some real help. This ain't it. This ain't it at all. We're really basically just enabling the bad behavior. That's all it is. But I wanna say thank you to Sid and to everybody who came out and joined in the discussion. I know it wasn't very comfortable, but this stuff has to be done, and that's why I'm here, so it can be done. Um, Anna, see you tomorrow. Looking forward to having you up. Everybody who's watching, thank you for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure that you're following me on all of my platforms. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Just in case we don't see each other, um, this is Assembly of Excellence signing off. Y'all be easy and
cut it out.
Peace.
Tomorrow.